Just be you. Honestly, I think this is one of those ones that I think resonates with everyone, if we're being honest. Um, whether it's social media, whether it's society, whether it's, anything that we might have grown up and been through, it's like everything has kind of shaped us or told us how we need to be. We go on social media and maybe it's for guys, you see what you define as success, right? And maybe it might be, whether it's the money, whether it's the fame, or whatever it might be, and you kind of compare yourself to that. You kind of see how that person is on their journey, and you look at how you are on your journey, and you think to yourself, man, like, I need to be doing more. I have to be doing better than this. There's no way. I'm looking at what this guy's doing, and it's like I don't measure up. But something we fail to realize sometimes is the fact that this guy literally might just actually have years on us, in terms of years on life, in terms of experience. Who's to actually say what they've been through? Who's to actually say, you know, they knew maybe their purpose and their calling maybe earlier from when you did, right? You're not even at the same place in life, in the same journey, yet you're there comparing yourself to this person, and you're now defining success as this one-dimensional thing from what you saw with this person, and you're now saying, no, I need this for myself as well. Who's to say success doesn't look different for you? And maybe you're a woman and it's this beauty standard we've been talking about for quite some time now. um you're maybe just beginning to actually love yourself and beginning to understand yourself, and you see the 1,000 photos showing you how you need to look in 2025 or in 2024, maybe in the past year that just went. And it's kind of like, man, we really don't understand how many edits even went into those photos. But beside that, the amount of photos that were even taken just to capture that one perfect picture. And this is the very thing that we measure ourselves up against, when we don't realize, let them just be them and let me just be me. So we're going to talk about how we actually just be ourselves, and just being yourself starts from actually looking within, as I mentioned in the Just Start video. You can only be yourself when you truly love yourself, if we're going to be honest. I feel like many a time we live in a world where people are so-called being themselves, but realistically they're putting on a facade. They're putting on a facade of themselves that, you know, people pleases, that pleases the people around them, just so they can get some form of acceptance. Because it's this so-called fear of rejection that no one wants to get, which from the last video we kind of know is not really fear, it's anxiety. Again, fear is when there's a present danger. There's no present danger even if you reject me, right? Because in you rejecting me, I know there's a people that are going to accept me. In you rejecting me, maybe I come to understand that you're actually just not my people. And there's a people out there that are for me, that I'm going to find as I begin to learn myself, understand myself, love myself, and be myself. It's this thought of I can't take not being accepted. It's this thought of I need to please everyone and be accepted by everyone, that causes us to sometimes fail and fall short in terms of just being ourselves. Right. So when I say, before we can even talk about just being ourselves, we need to actually love ourselves. How do we love ourselves? It's really through loving God, right? Through having that relationship with God. And if you're not a believer, maybe this is the very video that's an invitation for you to actually again know that there is a God who made you, right? I'm not telling you what to believe, but what I do want you to know are the facts. Is when we look at this intricately designed world and your intricately designed self, there's no way it was just by chance. Even if it was science, even if it was the Big Bang, these are the very same people which say that life is cause and effect, right? So if the effect was this explosion and creation, then there had to have been a cause of that. There had to have been someone that designed the very things we see. If there's a building, we know there's a builder. So if there's creation, we're all to know there's a creator as well. And again, as I said in Genesis 1:26, God made mankind in his image and in his likeness. Well, I didn't say that. The Bible said that, but I mentioned it in my first video. Um, and when we understand again, we were made in the Creator's image and likeness. Right. So if I'm made in his image and in his likeness, he formed me, he made me, he gave me the talents, the gifts, the purpose, the calling which I have for my life. Then if I really want to know myself, it's through knowing him. It's through knowing the one I was made in the image of. Imagine we had a building, right? And then we went to the architect, the one who designed the building, and he said, "Oh yeah, I laid the seats out like this way with this distance, like that, and with this style because of so and so." When you now look at that building, even without the architect, because the architect has given you the knowledge and the information through which he designed the building looks a bit different now. You have a different level of understanding because he laid his wisdom, his knowledge, and imparted into you as to how he made and designed the very building which you now see. It's the same way in which if I'm ought to know myself, I have to go to God. I have to have that relationship with God, and that relationship is through Jesus. Again, he's the way, the truth, and the life. The only way to get to the Father is through him. Right? He died for our sins. He died for you to restore that relationship that was once lost in Genesis, or in the book of Genesis, which details the loss of that relationship with sin separated, but we now have a restored relationship through Christ. Right. So now as we have that relationship with God, as I begin to love God, I begin to love myself, I begin to understand myself more, then I can really start being myself. And maybe if you're not a believer and you're thinking to yourself, man, is that the only way? Yeah, it is. It really is the only way. But you can, it's one way you can start. It's one way I encourage you to start to have that relationship with God. But you can even internally reflect and think to yourself, man, how can I begin to really love myself? Love myself, I should say. Right? You've been given a gift. You've been given an ability in this life to do great and mighty things. Yet we often don't realize it or acknowledge it because we're so often comparing ourselves with John to the left and Sarah to the right. And these might be your friends, and admire the gifts of your friends. I have some very gifted and talented friends. Sorry, it's very windy. I've got some very gifted and talented friends, and I admire the gifts that they have with the love of Christ. I think it's amazing, some of the things that they're doing. But what I don't do is, in admiring their gifts, fall into the trap of undermining myself, fall into the trap of comparing myself to them. Right, as much as I admire their gifts, right, and as much as they use their gifts to please God and to serve others, there's a gift and talent that God has given me to do the same as well, to please Him and to serve others. And I know sometimes it can be difficult because we have that friend, yo, he can do everything. I mean, it's ridiculous. He can, when it's sports, yo, this guy can play football, basketball, tennis, swimming, lacrosse, bro. Like, this guy can do everything. You know, when it's music, I mean, this guy can play every instrument. It's like, yo, like, God, did you just give this guy every gift? Like, leave something for me. But it's like knowing that as much as I admire these very gifted people, right, and that's the way life is. Sometimes there are people who are multi-talented. Maybe God has just given you that one thing. But what I like to say is find that gift, find that one thing, and just run with it. That one thing, when we look at the Bible, for King Solomon was wisdom. He wasn't searching to try and find anything else. It was wisdom. That was the one thing that he had. He had that gift and he really just ran with it. And as he ran with it, we've been blessed through the books of, Proverbs and Ecclesiastes, right? And we can see this man was probably the richest person to ever walk the face of the earth, right? The Bible even calls him the wisest person to ever live on this earth, right? Is to show you that when you find your one thing and you run with it, people come to find you. And that's literally what happened with King Solomon. I mean, other nations were queens, people from other nations were coming to him and they were saying, I need to hear what you have to say because it's like you're prospering, your nation's prospering. I need to hear something. Like you need to give me a word or something. Like, and it's to say that when you find your one thing, the people that are going to help you, the people that are going to be on this journey with you will find you. Just be you, and just being you looks like, again, loving yourself, understanding yourself, being on that journey to just improving yourself and developing yourself, right? And as you do that, you begin to progress, you begin to just make those steps in being yourself, right? In loving yourself. And sometimes I think we make this thing of our callings and our purpose and maybe, where God has sent us to a lot more challenging and difficult than it really needs to be. There's a reason why you have interests, hobbies, talents, things that you can just do. And people are like, how do you do this? And it's like, I just do it. There's a reason why you have that. Like, it's not by chance. Those interests, those hobbies are trying to indicate something to you, trying to let you know something. Those passions you have are trying to let you know something. Yo, maybe this is where God is taking you. But sometimes we just take it for granted. Sometimes we just think, oh yeah, nah, it's just there. Maybe the market's too saturated. Maybe in what you're trying to do is oversaturated. Nah, I don't think I could do it. Something I like to think to myself is, even with content creation, people like to say maybe it is very saturated, which it might be. I'm sure there's enough space for just one more. I'm sure there's enough space for just one more channel. I don't think me making my channel and posting my content makes it any more saturated. I'm just gonna do me. I'm just gonna be me, just gonna be myself and provide value to people and bless people. Right. So that's how we really just be ourselves, right? I admire what the person has to my left and to my right, but I also love myself, and I'm gonna walk in my purpose and my calling. And lastly, I'm going to leave you with this example. At the place I used to work, I was speaking to an international student, and he was from China. And he was talking about how he felt that China could do 1 to 100 right, but not 0 to 1 right. And he was saying that if you just do 0 to 1 right, you can actually get paid very well. And I reflected on that and I thought to myself, taking that even on a deeper level, sometimes we're so focused on making this huge change, even when we are just being ourselves. We're so focused on making this huge change. We need to do this, we need to do that. Sometimes we forget the foundational things. We try to do 1 to 100, and maybe we do 1 to 100 that day, then the next day comes and we don't really do it, and the next day comes and we just give up. When we attack the habits, which Atomic Habits actually talks about, when we focus on the habits, when we focus on the day-to-day things, 0 to 1, the foundational things, day after day after day, that's when we see great change. That's when we see the progress we need in just wanting to be ourselves. Again, I hope this video was a blessing to you. Hope this video was encouragement as well. I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bless you.